breathe out. Breathe in. In you. Breathe out. I am pure. Breathe in. In you. I am. Exhale.
All the thoughts that I want to say that I know I shouldn't.
They're not appropriate. Okay. Well, we're back. This is the saint and the singer.
I'm the saint.
He is the saint, and I'm the singer.
He is the singer.
His name is also Sean Courtney.
And his name is also Andy Goodson.
Somebody called me Badson today.
Really?
It just cut to the core.
Hey, words hurt. We learned about that in Bible study.
They do. Yeah. They do.
They can also heal, though. Goodson.
Thanks. Well, tonight we have a special theme that neither of us believes we can get through without being stupid. We are going to talk about the Song of Songs.
Or the Song of Solomon, depending on how you want.
Solomon, yeah. And I want to say up front, there will be no jokes. We will not do things like read a verse that says, "Kiss me tenderly, your love is better than wine, and you smell so sweet."
Yes, we will not do that.
We will not be doing things like that.
We will not act like the 12-year-olds that our wives accuse us of being.
That's right.
We'll make it at least 14.
Yeah, I would say my inner child at least has a permit. Okay, I don't think he's a licensed driver.
15, okay.
Maybe 15. Well, in Arkansas, it's 14.
Well, in Kansas it is too. So we're not in Arkansas or Kansas. But.
So anyway, it's June. We're back. We're glad to be back into some sort of routine, and I don't know why we chose this particular thing to start with, other than we're reading it in the Bible recap.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
We are changing some things about the podcast. We're maybe moving away from the Bible recap in some ways and going to stick more with some things that are more timely, perhaps, but we'll see. Anyway, Song of Songs, right there, roughly in the middle of Scripture. What's the purpose of Song of Songs? We were talking
confuse
about this
Puritans.
Confuse Puritans.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I like that. Yes.
There are three understandings or interpretations of Song of Songs.
Okay.
The Jewish tabernacle, the Jewish rabbinical group would say that it was a love song from God to the people of Israel.
Which makes some of those passages
we'll hold on. We'll get there in a second. Yeah,
for me.
We will.
Okay.
That's been kind of the modern interpretation of from a Jewish standing. From a Christian standing, there is also the idea that this is the same kind of thing, but this is a love song from Jesus to the bride. Which, again, we will have to talk about some questionable passages that makes that seem a little awkward.
That is not one of those things you see depicted in Jesus portraits on the wall, that's for sure.
The buddy Jesus.
The buddy Jesus.
Nice. The more modern, in the last 50 to 100 years, the idea is now coming out that that's actually a legitimate love letter based in the same kind of writings as the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Canaanite, the surrounding nations, so that it actually is just a love note from one person to another. So from basically from the beloved, the woman, to the lover. Her beau,
her
man.
And are we going to assert through that it is Solomon and his perhaps first wife, or his?
There is question about who is it. The traditional thought is that Solomon is writing this, maybe to his first wife, but also maybe not. There are some passages that make it seem like he has other lilies in his garden. So,
Which we know he did.
Which he did. He had 700 plus the 300 concubines. So the man got around. I mean, let's just pause for a second to think about it. If you have 1,000 women, even if you're having sex one day a week with one woman a day,
It's once every 3 years.
every 3 years you're going. Yeah, that is ridiculous.
The way my memory works these days, I'd have to be reintroduced every time.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Sean, and you are.
Have we met? If I go on a vacation for 2 weeks from work, I have to figure out what it is I do and who are these people surrounding me when I get back. So,
Well, and let's be honest here. Seriously, what about STDs? We know that there were some STDs back then. There was syphilis and gonorrhea. I mean,
this is the guy who teaches this kind of stuff to your children at school.
I do teach it, so that's part. But I have had that thought. I'm like, there's a reason why God talks about monogamy. I mean, there are natural consequences for polygamy, and Solomon hit on every single one of them. I mean,
I would say he did.
But yes, so most people will say that this actually is about Solomon. There are some that would say that it is about a random shepherd and that Solomon is just mentioned in the time of Solomon. So there are two different thoughts on that. And to be honest, we don't really know.
But it seems awfully specific.
It does. I mean, when it mentions Solomon, it sounds like Solomon is the marriage. When the narrator is speaking of him getting into the coach or the sedan and being carried to the wedding, that Solomon is the one that they're talking about, the groom.
Okay.
So one can make an argument for that.
So for me, I guess we'll just start here. I think I'm going to ascribe to that final one. I do think this is a love letter between two human beings who are married and who are delighting in each other both physically and spiritually and emotionally.
Sure.
The thought that God wants to say some of these things to me, or Jesus wants to say some of these things to me, would keep me up at night. And maybe we can talk about some of those specific ones if we really want to go there. But, yeah.
Well, okay. The king is lying on his couch, enchanted by the fragrance of my perfume.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
I don't want to think of Jesus being enchanted by my manly musk. I'm sorry, that just kind of sours it a little bit. Like, it's awkward.
My darling, you are a perfume between my breasts. That does not.
And again, part of this, we have to wrap our mind around the fact that we live in a culture where, after, post-Victorian, so we've gone through that Victorian age. So the church has been influenced significantly by the Victorian age.
Yeah.
And these are not things that would be talked about in church culture, church, circles. Right. And honestly, I think that that's a problem. I think that the church needs to be speaking openly about intimacy and a physical relationship, what is expected, instead of always keeping it behind closed doors,
pretending like it's a bad thing. So one of the things
was the old joke that dancing, the Baptists say that dancing leads to sex, or no, sex leads to dancing.
The church I grew up in, the joke was, you don't have sex standing up because it could lead to dancing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I feel like the purpose of this might be to give an example of what a healthy love and desire for your spouse is about. It's in a weird way, it's very romantic. It's a little erotic. Sometimes it's a little strangely graphic in
a poetic way.
In a very poetic way.
There's actually this is the reason why men were not allowed in ancient culture to read it until they were 30. Mm-hmm. The rabbis would not let the young men read Song of Solomon.
Yeah. And so I agree that in our culture in the past anyway, I think we've swung that pendulum way too far now, that we didn't talk about it, or we talked about it like it was dirty and nasty or, something to be ashamed of. instead of having a healthy understanding of what it is that we're supposed to feel for one another, especially in the bonds of marriage and the covenant of marriage, we've swung that pendulum from not talking about it and calling it dirty to just making it for everybody. And
Yeah.
there's nothing special about
Right.
it. So I think this brings to an account that love, the affection. I mean, I don't know. Apparently, I don't do enough studying of my own language. Now I can't come up with a word for it. I almost want to say lust for the one that you love.
I would say it's to have passion.
Passion. I knew there's a different word for that. Yeah.
Because lust has a
Definitely has a negative
connotation, but passion.
And, sometimes there
Well,
might be a
and
little
it goes
bit of
back
lust
to
within that.
Proverbs when he talks about Proverbs. Proverbs 19. So this is again Solomon. He's telling his son. He's talking to him about wisdom about being with his wife, and he says, "She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love." Mm-hmm. And he's talking about this in the sense of stay with the one that you're with.
Yeah.
And I think in our culture today, this is a truth that we need to really gravitate towards, because we have kind of swung to another degree. The culture around us, not so much the church still. I think the church is still behind in some ways.
Yeah.
Has swung to this far extreme that you just have sex with whomever you want. There's no consequences. There are pastors
There's
that
no
were
meaning.
Yeah, there was a pastor saying that there's no that fornication isn't really a sin. He was saying that we define fornication wrong. He was saying it's only sex with prostitutes. That if people have sex outside of marriage, it's okay. That was coming from a pulpit. So now the church is being infected by the culture. We have to have a healthy understanding of what is a physical intimacy, an emotional intimacy,
Okay.
even a spiritual intimacy. I think there's a truth in all of that.
Absolutely. So, do you want to run through some highlights here of what are some good examples? And I'm going to try to do this in a mature way and not get all weird about it. But like seriously, there's some beautiful poetry in here about the love between a man and a woman. Not these,
Right.
Those.
Okay, so the young man says in 2:2, like a lily
2:2.
among thistles is my darling among young women. He recognizes that she is unique among the other women.
Yep.
What woman doesn't want to feel treasured? So, I mean,
I hear the voice of the one I love as he comes leaping over mountains and hills like a deer or a gazelle. Now he stands outside our wall looking through the window and speaking to me. So that speaks of like they've been apart,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they've longed to see each other since they've been apart.
You are my private garden. This is 4:12. My treasure, my bride. A secluded spring, a hidden fountain. There's this value to it. And so, and the idea of a garden is actually, that's all written, woven through all of
Have we
Scripture.
seen gardens anywhere else?
Yeah, Garden of Eden. There's also the garden where Jesus, is praying before he dies. There's a garden where he's buried. There is,
There's a garden to come.
Yes.
There's all sorts of gardens.
So the idea of a garden is a value. Really, there is a connotation there of a God space. But in this situation, he's saying there's a value to you. I treasure you.
I mean, if you want to get a little bit different, do it. Your lips are a honeycomb, milk and honey flow from your tongue. I mean, there's some stuff there.
Before I realized it, my strong desires had taken me to the chariot of a noble man. That's one of those confusing questions, but there's this idea that I am drawn to him.
Okay, so 6:8. What if I could have 60 queens, 80 wives, and thousands of others? You would be my only choice, my flawless dove, the favorite child of your mother. So this is not just about sex.
No,
I mean,
it's not.
Sex does play a rather forward part in all of this, but it's really about the interplay of love and sex and passion and adoration and all of the things. There's depth there. It's not just
There is a
it's
physical
on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, 7:10. I am my lover's, and he claims me as his own. Come, my love, let us go out to the fields and spend the night among the wildflowers. There is an act of passion there. But again, it's in a relationship that is designed by God, and God created sex for our pleasure. Honestly, we and dolphins are the only animals in the animal kingdom that have sex for pleasure.
Yeah. I just read one that's going to make me blush. Sorry. That's pretty hard to do, too.
I do find this one funny. 8-1. Oh, I wish you were my brother who nursed at my mother's breast, then could kiss you no matter who was watching and no one would criticize me. So what she's saying is, in public, if we were siblings, I could just go up and kiss you on the cheek or whatever, and nobody was thinking of it. As a spouse, that kind of that cultural was still something that was done in the bedroom. PDA was not something that they experienced. We don't have as much of an issue today with PDA.
Right.
If someone's two people are kissing or whatever in the movie theater, we're not like there's a little bit of it. But a peck on the cheek or whatever, it's not going to bother.
So another part of this that we haven't discussed yet is there's a recurring theme that is at least in there 3 times that we've found, that is young women of Jerusalem, promise me by the power of deer and gazelles, never to awaken love before it is ready. Never awaken love before it is ready.
Yeah, that is an important phrase, and honestly, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because let's be honest, at times, I think, especially when I look at like junior high and high school students, when they start dating for 2 weeks or whatever, they're like, we love each other. Like, really? You're willing to sacrifice your most prized possession for your significant other? Well, no, then you don't really love each other. Yeah, not my shoes or not my bike or whatever. So it's not really love. It's not really agape.
Right.
It's that point. It's just eros. So she's saying, don't awaken eros, that it confuses you before you're ready. I think it's a very beautiful and important thing. Now,
it's good teaching.
Yeah,
to preach.
And here's the problem: in our culture today, we have pushed back significantly when we get married, to our detriment. Even if we just look back to our great-grandparents' age, let's go back 60, 70 years. Many of them were getting married at 17, 18 years old. That was the norm.
Yeah.
Today, the average time that a person gets married, I want to say it's 24 for women, 25 for women now, and I think it's 28 for men.
Yeah.
So you're now holding off. And if you want to
basically 10 years.
Yeah. And you want to tell someone to be celibate for 10 more years?
It's tough.
That is very difficult. And so I see why the culture struggles with that. I'll be honest, I got married when I was 21. Don't get me wrong, I was young and dumb. And my wife will tell you, we made some mistakes, but we worked through that. And it was a blessing in many ways that we did get married. Even at 21, they were saying that we were young. But, I mean, we knew. So we were actually probably could have gotten married earlier.
One of the problems for me not with this passage, but that this passage kind of infers, and it's something that somebody said to me 20 years ago, and I couldn't tell you, I couldn't really honestly tell you where I heard it, who told me it, or what. But I had come to understand, and I have come to understand that sex, and this is going to sound weird today because super glue isn't really all that big of a deal now, but sex is like the super glue to your relationship.
Sure.
So as that chemical thing starts to kind of slow down some, the sex is kind of like the super glue that kind of holds that relationship together in some respects. But if you remember, when super glue first came out anyway, if you got that mess on 2 fingers and you tried to pull it off, what happened?
It hurt. It ripped the skin.
It ripped the skin off. And so when you look at having sex before marriage, or maybe multiple partners, all this sort of stuff, if you, whether or not in your head you're feeling it, in your soul, you're building this little bond, and then when you break it off or move on to the next one, it rips. Yeah. And it's painful, and a lot of people are in denial about that, or they just chalk it up to something else. But it's meant for long-term monogamous relationships, and anything outside of that is damaging.
Well, and you think about how serious a sexual relationship is. When you look at the patriarchs, when Isaac goes and finds his bride, Rebecca, the consummation of that relationship was the marriage situation.
Yeah,
there wasn't like there was a ceremony like we have.
And all that.
They didn't spend $30,000, renting a big church and getting a white dress and all that.
That was the wedding.
They dragged, they were pulled into the tent, and that's what happened. And willingly went into the tent, but. I did make it.
You kind of made it sound.
I did kind of make it sound well, but I mean, there was some truth to that.
Happened that way too.
There was some truth to that, because women were kind of seen more as property in that culture too. But through time, they did come up with a marriage. So by the time of Jesus, there was an engagement process,
right?
And so
and when you're engaged, you were going to your father's house and adding on to the house. This wasn't like, hey, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it was a big deal.
And oftentimes you would wait a year, and you would be married in all but, the physical intimacy.
Yep.
As they said in the nativity story, the way you are married in all ways, but what would make a child.
Okay, let's switch gears now. Let's take a break real quick.
All
right, we are back, and we're gonna do. Now we're going to have some fun, I guess is the way I would say that. We are going to talk about our favorite Christian pickup lines from Song of Songs. So if your relationship with your loved one has maybe hit a wall, or maybe we're not communicating enough, or maybe you're just not speaking that love language that your beloved really needs to hear, we got some good ones for you. Do you want to go first, or me go first?
Go for it.
Oh, I'll go first. Okay, so let's just start right at the beginning of Song of Songs in chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, which I kind of started with. Kiss me tenderly. Your love is better than wine, and your smell so sweet. All the young women adore you.
Nothing says to your future bride, the chicks dig you.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna go with 1:9. I think this one really sets the stage for the relationship, and
I mean every woman would die to hear this.
This will definitely trip her trigger, in many ways.
Don't use this at a bar; it could backfire terribly.
You are as exciting, my darling, as a mare among Pharaoh's stallions. You just called her an old hag. Old.
So good. Yeah. So good. 1:15. My darling, you are as lovely, so very lovely. Your eyes are those of a dove. Dove eyes.
I mean, I can see like doe eyes, but bird. It's a little beady.
Little beady eyes.
Yeah. Okay.
And this chair's gonna fall apart.
I'm gonna go with 4:4. I think this is
4:4.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead.
Okay.
Because I think this one really accentuates her amazing features.
Mm-hmm.
Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David, jeweled with the shields of 1,000 heroes.
Wow.
I mean, that just
What lady does not want to hear that?
You have a long neck, and it's shielded, because you've got scaly skin.
I think you mentioned this one earlier. 2-2.
Okay.
My darling, when compared with other women, you are a lily among thorns.
Now that one
One's actually not too bad.
That one actually could you could probably pull that one off.
That one's not too bad.
I could see that one used in church, youth groups.
Now, if you really want to get a conversation started, I'm going to do a bonus because mine's the very next one. So we just read, "You are a lily among thorns," and then she responds, "And you, my love, are an apple tree among the trees of the forest."
So he's got a really large Adam's apple.
If that doesn't get your blood flowing, to move on. Okay.
I'm gonna jump ahead. I kind of the back end more than the front end. So I'm gonna go with 6-6.
6-6.
Yes.
Okay. You're diving off into some deep waters. This is after the wedding.
Yeah, this is after the wedding. So he's already hooked her. At this point, he's got her.
Okay.
Your teeth are as white as sheep that are freshly washed. Your smile is flawless. Each tooth matched with its twin. Wow. So we know she's not from Arkansas.
Sorry to my family who lives in Arkansas.
I could have said right. I could have said Beck County. That also worked.
He's right.
Stone County, Taney County.
All right. I went with chapter 4, 5, and 6. This one's a little racy, so
hold your
prepare
horses.
yourselves. Yeah, stay away from your horses.
Well, you already shacked her up. You already hooked her up to the chariot. Take me home, honey.
At one time, I might have jokingly said this was my life verse. 5 and 6. Your breasts are perfect. They are twin deer feeding among lilies. I will hasten to those hills sprinkled with sweet perfume and stay there till sunrise. We're not making that joke, remember?
I know, I could hold it.
But it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 7-2.
7-2. Okay.
Because if this doesn't just, set the stage for a romantic evening, I don't know what does.
Well, should you even be reading this?
I don't know. It's going to get a little hot in here. Okay. Your navel is perfectly formed like a goblet filled with mixed wine. Between your thighs lies a mound of wheat bordered with lilies.
Okay.
I didn't realize the last part of that.
I didn't either.
I'm going to actually, honestly, I read the first half and didn't read the last half. I'm like, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's no need to really elaborate on that. 4-9's a good one.
Yeah, let's go on.
My bride, my very own, you have stolen my heart. With one glance from your eyes and the glow of your necklace, you have stolen my heart.
Ooh. All right, my last one is 7, 7, and 8. You are slender like a palm tree, and your breasts are like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb that palm tree and take hold of its fruit. May your breasts be like grape clusters, and the fragrance of your breath like apples. If you compare her, I guess this really kind of goes along with Steve Miller Band.
The Joker.
The Joker, yeah.
Wow.
So he actually got it from Song of Songs.
I probably did. Yep.
Songs.
Last one for me. 7-4, and I'm going to call it B. Your nose is beautiful like Mount Lebanon above the city of Damascus.
What every woman wants to hear. Your nose is large like a mountain.
Okay. So anyway, that's the relationship advice segment, I guess. You can do with those whatever you want to.
Please, if you use them, I want a recording and I want to see the lady's response.
Absolutely. Please do that. All right. We'll be back with our last little portion. So, children, what did we learn, if nothing else?
We learned that God created sex, and that's not a bad thing.
I concur.
And that my youth group should not read Song of Solomon.
Oh, man. No, they should not. Or maybe they can, and we just can't be in the room with them.
Yeah, that too.
That too. Well, thank you guys for joining us. This has been The Saint and the Singer.
I'm the Saint.
And I'm the Singer. And we will be hollering at you next week, I think. We're going to get back into rhythm and move this thing forward. We appreciate you watching, listening,
Laughing with us, hopefully.
Laughing at us probably, but whatever. That's what we're here for, is your education and your entertainment and our humiliation.
Yes.
See you guys next time.
Take care. My name is Sean Courtney. I'm the pastor at Connection Point Church, and I would like to offer you a big welcome to come join us on Sunday mornings for Sunday school at 9 o'clock. We have adult Sunday schools, we have children and youth Sunday school classes available. Then following that, we have worship where we will sing praises, pray for one another, and listen to Bible study. Encourage you, that starts at 10:15. We are at 700 Sycamore Street in Monette, Missouri. Also on Wednesday nights, we have more small groups following a meal that starts at 5:30. We have men's group, women's group, single moms, children, and youth. Encourage you guys to come and join us. We believe it's very important to be actively involved in the body of Christ, because here, you're family.